In 1961, President Kennedy called on all Americans to rise to the challenges of the day. He knew that success depended upon the unity of efforts throughout the federal government and the nation. The Greater Boston Federal Executive Board, one of 28 across the country, fosters communication, coordination, and collaboration with federal, state, and local government agencies. This is your federal government, and I am your host, Diane LeBlanc. Hello everyone. Today we are featuring one of the oldest federal law enforcement agencies in the country, the United States Postal Inspection Service. Their mission is to keep our nation's mail system safe against any type of misuse that would endanger or defraud the American public. Our guests are Robert Bethel, who is a postal inspector in charge, and Kevin Nyland, who is the Deputy Postal Inspector in charge. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having us today.
Rob, I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about the history and the mission of your organization.
Well, our organization dates back as far as 1737. We go back that far. What we're charged with, as you said just moments before, is the security of the Postal Service. That encompasses the employees, most importantly, the building, and the infrastructure and the mail, of course, the consistency and the integrity of the mail. So we're charged with the security of all those things.
Now, how is the Postal Inspection Service organized around the country to carry out its mission?
Well, the Postal Inspection Service is made up of 18 divisions around the country. Boston Division is one of those 18 divisions. We also have a headquarters group, which is at the Postal Service headquarters in LaFont Plaza. We have a crime laboratory in Dulles, Virginia, and we have a communications center also in Dulles, Virginia. So we're national. We have offices also in Guam. We go as far as Guam. We have postal inspectors in Europe. So we're not only national, but around the world.
Now, what is your geographic area of responsibility?
We have a large geographical area. We have all the 6 New England states, plus upstate New York, starting from Albany, going as far west as Buffalo. So if you put your finger on the I-90 corridor, we take care of everything north and south of the I-90 corridor. So it can be challenging, but very interesting as well.
Now, the Postal Inspection Service nationwide, how many employees, and then how many employees are you responsible for?
We have, currently we have approximately 3,500 employees. We have right now about 1,400 agents or postal inspectors. In the Boston Division, we currently have approximately 125 employees within the division. We have a uniform division that has 24 uniform officers. We have approximately 70 postal inspectors, and we have professional technical assistants, about 30 to 35 around the division.
Okay. Where do you get your funding?
We get the funding. We're funded from the Postal Service, and I should tell you, we don't receive a nickel of taxpayer money. It all comes from that stamp that you purchase. So we're funded entirely by the Postal Service.
Okay. Now, tell me, what does a postal inspector actually do on a typical day?
Boy, there's a whole litany of things an inspector can do. As you may or may not know, we're charged with over 200 federal statutes that we're mandated to enforce. So a typical day for an inspector could involve investigations ranging from assaults, burglaries, robberies, drugs in the mail, child exploitation, going out making presentations regarding fraud, mail theft, the investigation of mail theft, the investigation of identity theft. It's a great job for anybody that wants to be involved, totally involved in the law enforcement function, because we are so diverse in the areas that we investigate. So I could promise you that when inspectors come to work during the day, it's a very, very quick day, quick paced day. It can be a long day, anywhere from 10 to 14-hour days, but because there's so many different things that you're investigating, it goes by very quickly.
And you, as the postal inspector in charge, what are your responsibilities?
My responsibilities basically are the oversight of all those investigations within the division, making sure that we maintain strong liaison with the U.S. Attorney's Office and with our postal partners, the district managers around the geographic area that we're responsible for, and all the administrative things that come attached to that.
Kevin, your turn. Tell us a little bit more about the types of crime investigations that you do.
Well, basically, Diane, what we do is we have to prioritize investigations, but we work mail theft, we work robberies, burglaries, assaults, anything that has to do with protecting our employees. As Rob said, child exploitation, dangerous mail investigations, drugs in the mail. It's pretty varied, as Rob said.
Okay. So the first thing you said was mail theft. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
I know that, I thought everybody got things direct deposited. So, things like your Social Security check or your tax refunds. Is mail theft still common?
I would say it's not common, and it definitely isn't common in the Boston division. There are security measures in place. We take it very seriously. That stamp means a lot, and that's what provides our ability to investigate, and we treat it very seriously, whether it's a birthday card or a Social Security check. We treat it very seriously.
Okay. Now, how about narcotics, drugs? How common is it for folks to use the mail system to engage in illegal drug activity?
It's not uncommon. We do have issues with drugs coming in from the mail, especially from the West Coast. Marijuana, cocaine, all different types of drugs coming in through the mail, and we're very aggressive in our investigation, and I think we have been successful in kind of stopping that. It's pervasive throughout the country, unfortunately. So what we do in terms of dealing with this is we'll conduct interventions. We'll identify the mailers and the recipients, go out and arrest them. The most important thing that we want to do is we want to keep the mail safe. We want to keep the mail safe, and we want to keep the people that are delivering the mail, letter carriers, safe from this criminal activity. So that's why we're engaged in that and so actively engaged in it.
Okay. Kevin, back to you. Now, how likely is it that a citizen might receive a piece of mail that's a dangerous piece of mail? A bomb, anthrax, some other sort of biological agent?
It's very unlikely, and since 2001, when we had the anthrax attacks, we've actually trained, in the Boston division, I think we have at least 25 dangerous mail specialists, train and recognize suspicious mail, be able to go out and resolve them. We handle over 170 billion pieces a year, and it's very unlikely that something was going to be dangerous.
So I think probably most people watching will remember the Unabomber and those anthrax attacks that you mentioned. What changes were put in place? Let's talk about the Unabomber first.
Sure.
What changes were put in place after that to really make the mail safer?
What we tried to do is we shrunk the size or the weight of a parcel to 13 ounces. So a parcel that is over 13 ounces has to be presented to the window to a clerk. So we believe that obviously would reduce the risk, because that's how they would operate anonymously and put it in a collection box. So now, if you have that, you have to bring it in and take it over we have to take it over the window.
And can you talk a little bit more specifically about, how you deal with biological agents, things like anthrax, and making sure that the mail is safe from that?
About 2004, we developed a biological detection system that we have in all our major plants, and the idea is to upfront identify a piece that if it contained anthrax, it would alert, and we've have a plan to handle that once that happens.
So how many postal facilities are there across the country?
There's about 33,000 facilities, and all that mail goes into about 280 plants, and that's where the biological detection system resides.
So those are the key points, and
Pinch
that's
points,
where
yeah.
you focus
Yes.
your efforts on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I was doing a little bit of research to prepare for our conversation today, and just you really do handle a lot of different kinds of investigations, kinds of cases. You know, perhaps the most horrific being child exploitation
Yes.
cases. Rob, tell us about that.
Well, that's something very close to my heart because you're right, we do investigate a whole litany of different types of fraud and crime that happens through the mail. But child exploitation, for us, that's one of the crimes that we actually investigate that really changes people's lives. When we get these perpetrators or monsters or however you want to characterize these people, look at what they're doing. They're preying on our children and how they're affecting our children's lives. So we take that, as we do all the investigations, very, very seriously. We work very, very hard, and we have very, very strong partnerships with the other federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies in the area. But how we become involved is sometimes these people will use the mail to send images through the mail. They'll use the mail to entice these victims. For example, there was a case recently where an individual from New Jersey believed he was corresponding with a underage girl, and he set up a meeting with her, came up to one of the New England states, but before he did, he sent her gifts, and say, in form of enticing her. We were able to, through the investigation, we were able to identify him, ultimately arrest him, and he was recently convicted and received a life sentence.
Wow!
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So with regard to the mail,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most people think, okay, it's sending pornography through the mail.
Right.
That's one part of it. But the enticement that you mentioned, in this day and age, so much actually takes place on the internet.
Right.
But then the mail gets connected when they try to, as you said, send gifts or
Anytime in furtherance of that crime, anytime they put a stamp on that envelope and send it, for example, if he were to say, okay, why don't you come visit me, and send that victim a plane ticket in the mail, that would be all we need, the mandate that we need to go out and get him, because he used the mail in the furtherance of the crime. So it doesn't have to be just the images, it could be any part of that crime.
with this being such a priority and so many eyes on it and trying to protect our children, how does this still happen?
I don't know the answer. I wish I did have an answer for that, because if I did, we'd be able to stop this horrific crime from occurring. We don't. It happens, it continues to happen, and all we can do is be diligent and be aggressive in identifying these people and bringing them to justice, which we have been successful in doing. But I will tell you, Diane, one of these cases is too many, and they're heartbreaking. But we are very aggressive. We work very closely with the U.S. Attorney's offices. We're in partnership with 8 in our division, 8 U.S. Attorney's offices, and I will tell you, all 8 are very aggressive in their prosecution of those people. So we will remain vigilant in child exploitation cases. Unfortunately, they continue to happen, and I wish I had an answer on how to stop it, but we don't.
Kevin, I'm going to come back to you.
Sure.
We mentioned that you also are responsible for investigating assaults, robberies, burglaries. Talk about assaults. Are these internal postal employees? Are these assaults on postal employees as they're out delivering the mail?
Yeah, actually it involves both. We don't have a huge problem considering the size of the organization. One of the things that we've taken very seriously is the prevention efforts, our Safe and Secure campaign. We actually get actively involved in the threat assessment teams with Postal. We're trying to get them to recognize and handle disturbances up front so that they don't escalate. Postal Service has a zero tolerance policy, and we help them enforce that. And then if there is an assault, we aggressively investigate. We bring it to the U.S. Attorney and we prosecute.
Now, workplace violence, I mean, sadly, all too common, and most people have heard the expression going postal. You spend an awful lot of your time on prevention in that area, and that's what you were just saying.
Yeah, we actually get out into the community a lot with the Postal Service, especially the larger plants, to deliver that message of zero tolerance, making sure that they understand that it will not be tolerated. So we do, and we try to get out and do those stand-up talks on a very regular basis.
And somebody out there that might, attack a postal carrier, what's the penalty for that?
It's 5 years and $50,000 of reward if that happens. So.
So you do
very
take
strict,
it very
yeah,
seriously.
very seriously.
And I'll tell you, we have dedicated our resources. That is, when Kevin has mentioned it's a zero tolerance, he's not kidding. We have to be able to protect our employees when they go out there. So if somebody comes out and dares assault a postal employee, I promise you the inspectors of the Boston Division will be out there investigating that, identifying that person, arresting that person, and taking that person before a federal judge. We recently just had a case down in Connecticut, unfortunately, where this individual came in to a postmaster's office, pushed her, shoved her, she hit her head on the desk. It was very, very bad. We took all the resources that we had in that area. We identified, arrested that person within 4 hours.
Wow.
He was placed in jail. He was in custody for 6 months. He pled guilty, and he's going to be sentenced in the next couple of weeks. So it sends a very strong message, I hope, that if you decide to go down that road, understand that the postal inspectors will be out to investigate and arrest that person.
What about robberies, burglaries? You're responsible for investigating those as well?
Yes, we are. In the Boston Division, I think we had 1 robbery in the last year. We've had about 11 burglaries, but once again, we go out and do education to the employees, what to identify, how to mitigate your risk. We use statistics, crime statistics, to figure out where we should be to make those presentations, and make sure those internal controls we have in place to prevent them that they're following their procedures.
Again, we keep hearing about prevention. The resources that you have, any idea what percentage get used toward prevention as opposed to stuff happening after the fact?
It's all part of an inspector's responsibility, that prevention effort. I would say, it depends, anywhere from 10 to 20% is prevention. Nobody can go out and solve a problem by arresting people. That just doesn't work. Because there's always somebody else that's going to back the person that you arrested. There's 100 people ready to take that person's position and continue the criminal activity. So the best way to do it is to identify the targets and try to educate those targets on how not to be victimized, what they can do to protect themselves so they're no longer victimized. If there's no money to be made, then the bad guys won't go in that direction. That's the key to success.
That really is the key. Let's talk a little bit about mail fraud. What are the different types of mail fraud?
Oh gosh, there's a whole umbrella of mail fraud. It can go from commodities fraud to mortgage fraud, white collar fraud, Ponzi schemes. These, I have to give it to the bad guys. They have fabulous imaginations. And any way that they can make a buck, they come up with a way to make a buck.
We never want to give it to the bad guys.
We never do.
No.
Not unless it's at sentencing. Then we do want to give it to them.
That's exactly right.
But there's a whole litany of things that they have come up with.
What are the most recent trends?
We have a lottery fraud that's a problem right now coming from Jamaica. And what they're doing is they're calling people up and they're telling them, hey, you won the lottery, you won and your question to them would be, well, geez, that's odd because I didn't enter. And their response is, well, yes, you did. You use a credit card, and the credit card automatically enters you into this fraud. They don't tell them fraud, into this lottery. You won the lottery. It's $5.7 million that you've won. In order for us to get the money to you, you have to forward us $10,000 to pay for the taxes and the fees. As soon as you pay us that $10,000, then we'll forward you the $5.7 million. You say, great, that's wonderful, I'm excited. You get the $10,000 together, you either get it in cash and mail it down to them, or most times you go to Western Union and you wire it to them. Of course, once they get that money and they know that they have you on the line, what do? They call you back up and say, hey, great, we're very close, but we're going to need an additional $5,000 to get your money back. That's how they rope these people in, and they use all kind of different techniques to do it. They call, they do, an interesting statistic that I found out, they call over 30,000 times a day, 365 days a year. That's how prolific they are in trying to get these victims involved. 30,000 calls are made a day in the United States. And of course, they're victimizing the people that can least afford to be victimized, the elderly.
That's just crazy, those numbers. Now, you started out by saying they call. And again, you're the United States Postal Inspection Service.
Right.
But so it doesn't start with the mail, but once the mail is involved, when they go to transmit the money, then you're involved.
There's a number of ways that we can become involved again, because remember, any continuance of that fraud with the stamp on the letter, we get involved. So if it is initiated by an email or by a telephone, and they send information to you, follow up with, okay, well, we'll send you some information that comes through the mail, or hey, send us some of your financial information that goes through the mail. That's how we get involved. The mail touches so many different avenues in these frauds. That's how we get involved.
So here in Massachusetts, do we have any sense of how many of those calls are coming into Massachusetts residents?
It's literally thousands, I would say hundreds during the day. As I said, 30,000 nationally, but yeah, hundreds upon hundreds. But understand, that's 365 days a year that they're constantly making these calls. And you're probably asking yourself, well, these fraudsters, how do they afford to make all these calls? Well, they're doing it on the internet, via the internet, where it keeps their, the cost of a phone call is next to nothing. So they're using all different type of IT techniques to keep their costs down, yet to keep the volume of calls up.
So you mentioned Jamaica.
Yes.
That's where a lot of this is coming out
Yes.
of these days. How are you working with officials in Jamaica? Are you working with other federal partners? What are you doing to try to put a stop to this?
Both. We work very closely with with Interpol and Europol, our international law enforcement partners. We work very closely with them. And in the United States, we work very, very closely with the FBI on our mail fraud cases. We work very closely with IRS. And we have been successful identifying these people, but when we identify and we arrest these people, the damage has already been done. We talked earlier about the prevention messages. That's why it's so important to get the word out to these folks, not to be victimized, because once they are victimized, the likelihood that they'll get their money back diminishes greatly, because these people live luxurious lifestyles. They buy luxurious homes, cars, boats, pianos, art, everything. And it's very difficult to get the money because it's been spent. And as I said before, a lot of the people that are victimized here can least afford that victimization. They're elderly people. We've had cases upon cases where people will be victimized. They're sending the mail in. Their daughters or sons are contacting us saying, hey, can you help us? My mom just sent $20,000 in cash. Can you get that? And we have been successful on occasion to get that money back. But then when we dig into it, what do we find? They've sent $100,000 to them already. So it's heartbreaking, because they're taking advantage of these people. And once we arrest them, yeah, they're going to jail. But as I said before, there's 100 people behind them to take that spot.
So for our viewers that are watching, are foreign lotteries, is that ever legitimate, those calls?
Never.
Never, okay.
They're illegal.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that they're preying on our senior citizens, and I was also reading that once you've been victimized, there's a greater likelihood that you will be victimized again.
Right.
How does that happen?
What these bad guys do, they have lists, and they sell those lists. They've identified somebody that has been taking the bait, for lack of a better expression, and they'll keep that person in their files, and they'll sell lists to other fraudsters, and they will do it. Now you can imagine these people, they're the soulless people as far as I'm concerned, because the person might be victimized $50,000, $60,000, then their name is on a list, it's sold to another fraudster that comes at a different angle, and these people that are victimized, a lot of times the citizenry out there will say, well, you know what, they deserve what they got. But it really isn't the case, because what happens is these people are, you're just trying to do the best thing that they can for their families. When they hear, hey, I won the lottery, they're thinking, not for themselves, they're thinking, hey, you know what, I can leave, this will be my legacy for my children, and I can help my children. So that's what these fraudsters are relying on. They're relying on the vulnerability of our parents, the people that have sacrificed and taken care of us when we needed to be taken care of. And in my view, it's our time to make sure that they're safe and secure, and we protect them. And this is a way to do that, to get that word out and say, hey, be careful, understand who they're talking to. Are your parents getting a lot of phone calls? Go through your parents' checking account. Are they writing large sums of money to somebody? Check their mail to see if they're getting solicitations coming in the mail. Those types of things that we can do to protect our parents that protected us when we needed, when we were most vulnerable.
All good advice. You mentioned, you touched on that they use technology to support their efforts. Tell folks a little bit about caller ID spoofing, what that is, and how it makes them appear to be legitimate.
What they'll do is they'll call up and they'll identify themselves as so-and-so. We're legitimate, and if you want to check on us, just call this number, and they'll call a number which they have identified. It might look like a 202 area code, which you know is Washington, D.C., and they'll pose as a federal agency, so the unsuspecting person will call up, and they'll say, yes, this is some government agency, and yes, we know that company, and they're legitimate. Or what they'll do is they'll say, hey, they'll call you, and on your caller ID, it will be a local area code, and we're saying, I'm in your area, and I'm over on such and such avenue, and you're looking at it and say, well, yeah, this must be a local call. When in fact, they could be calling from Western Africa or the Caribbean or the Netherlands.
So what should somebody do if they get one of these calls?
First of all, what they should do is hang up. The second thing that they can do is they can contact their local postmaster, and if they have any solicitation in the mail, give it to the local postmaster. The postmaster will forward it to us, the Postal Inspection Service. If they have a computer and they're comfortable on the computer, they can online submit a fraud complaint on www.postalinspectors.gov. There's a site there where you can submit a fraudulent complaint, or you can call us at 1-877-876-2455, and I'll read that again. I'm cheating because I'm using a card here.
Okay.
It's 1-877-876-2455 to lodge a complaint, and we'll take a look at it.
So if they do that, and so if they get a piece of mail, that's easy to, again, get to a postal inspector to send that along. But if they get those calls, should they be reporting those calls as well, or just hang up and then they don't do anything?
No, they absolutely should report those calls. It's important to us to get any and all information together, so what we can do is we develop a baseline, and we're able to identify these people, because if they're getting called, there's thousands of people getting called, so they should contact us, absolutely.
So if they go through this process and they file the complaint, will they eventually hear back from you?
Yeah, they'll receive a letter from us advising that we have received the complaint, But hopefully, they haven't given a nickel, so that'll be it for them. But that information to us as investigators is critically
Very
important.
valuable.
It is.
You know, my mother's always telling everybody in the family and everybody she knows to get on the national do not call line number.
Right.
And if they do that, does that protect against getting these kinds of calls?
Not the fraudulent ones. They don't adhere to that. It's the legitimate ones that will honor that. Unfortunately, the fraudsters obviously don't pay attention to that.
So you've got an awful lot going on to sort of protect against this kind of fraud, the investigations, the interception, and the prevention. And as you said, these foreign lotteries are never legal. Now, what are the penalties?
They can go anywhere from 5 years to $250,000 per count. There's significant jail sentences that comes with that, forfeiture of items. But as I said, putting these people in jail is great. Arresting them is great. Putting liens on their property is great. Unfortunately, the damage is already done. For us, the law enforcement component is critically important. We want to do that because there is a level of deterrence with that. But for me, the prevention message is critically important. Don't become a victim. Don't lose that. You don't want to be that person that goes before the camera telling your story, saying, don't let this happen to you. It's devastating financially for these people and for their families. I'll give you an example. There was a woman who was married to a doctor. Now, these are not naive people. And it was a Western African fraud, basically saying that, hey, if you invest in this money, you'll make tenfold. He fell for it. Everything, his whole life savings, they remortgaged the house, unbeknownst to his wife, remortgaged the house. It was over $250,000. He passed away, and his wife is left with this, trying to pick up the pieces. And of course, the money is gone.
So really that old adage, if it sounds too good to be true,
it is.
It is.
Yes, absolutely.
I was very impressed with the website. I think it was www.deliveringtrust.com.
Yes.
And there were some great tips out there. I don't know if you want to share some of those.
No, go ahead, Rob.
Deliveringtrust.com talks about a number of different frauds. Another big fraud that we're very concerned about are the counterfeit documents, the checks, counterfeit documents that come in. And I can tell you quickly about that scam. Say for example, you're going to sell a desk, and you put it on a website, Craigslist or one of those sites. Somebody calls you up and says, yes, I'm going to buy that desk. I'm going to be over in a week, but here's my problem. I have a check. You're asking for $200 for that desk. I'm going to give you the $200, but I only have a $500 check. So I'll send you the $500 check. You take the $200 for that, keep $50 for your troubles, so you're going to actually get $250, and send the $200 back to me, the change. Yeah. So you say to yourself, yeah, okay, that's a great deal, but you're smart, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to wait. You're going to let the check clear for 5 days. Then the check clears. You're able to access that money. You think you're free and clear. Okay, so you send the $200 back. Well, later that month, you get a call from your bank saying, hey, by the way, that was a counterfeit check, and now you're out the $500. That is a major fraud. They're very prolific in printing those and sending those out. Deliveringtrust.com talks about that, talks about a number of frauds that we're involved with. That's just one of many.
Interesting. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about your personal background. Tell us about how you came to work for the Postal Inspection Service.
Well, I started my career back in 1981. I was a letter carrier. I was a criminal justice major, and I was looking at different law enforcement, federal law enforcement agencies. I did my research. I found out about the Postal Inspection Service, and many of the things that we discussed here today really attracted me to the Postal Inspection Service. The diversity of activities, the diversity of investigations, the autonomy that we're allowed in terms of our investigations. So I applied. I was in Scottsdale, Arizona, delivering mail, and my first duty station was Portland, Maine, so that was quite a change for me. I had the opportunity to work in many different divisions, including the Chicago division. I was at Washington headquarters. I was in Portland, Oregon, San Francisco, and ultimately made it back to the greatest division in the country, which is the Boston division.
Nice. And how long have you been with them?
I've been with the Postal Service for 31 years and with the Postal Inspection Service for 23 years.
Good for you. And Kevin, how about you?
I actually started with the Postal Service in 1979. As a casual appointment in the summers when I was going to UNH, and my dad was a postal employee. He was a manager at finance, and he said postal inspectors were the best job in the Postal Service. So I worked as a carrier, I worked as a postmaster for a little while. In 1995, I was lucky to get into the inspection service. I spent the last 16 years prior to this one in the Washington division working numerous investigations. I was originally worked internal crimes, I worked external crimes, I was a team leader for financial investigations, for Homeland Security, which was the dangerous mail part of it, and then last August I came out to be the assistant inspector in charge for Rob in the Boston division.
Nice. So you both seem to have loved what you do. Would you recommend this to anybody out there who might be interested in a similar career? And if you do, what should they do if they want to pursue a career with the Postal Inspection Service?
I would highly recommend it. For me, it was a perfect fit. We're looking for intelligent, aggressive people that are willing not to look at the clock. They're long hours, but it's very satisfying when you're conducting these investigations, when you're going out giving these stand-up talks, because you do make a difference in people's lives. That's the most important thing. So yes, I would highly recommend it. And the best way to do it is to go on our website, which is www.postalinspectors.gov, and they will give you all the information, the recruitment information, on how to become a postal inspector. You need a 4-year degree, and as I said, just a lot of energy and enthusiasm for the job.
Yeah, the variety of work is incredible. When I came in working internal crimes, financial investigations, external crimes, robberies, burglaries, assaults. I mean, you had such a varied experience. It's been phenomenal. I would definitely recommend it to anybody.
But not if you only want 40 hours a week.
No,
We're not the people. We're not the place to go.
No.
So we've covered an awful lot of ground in a short amount of time. Is there anything that I have not asked you about that you think our viewers really need to know?
Just to, I know we spent a lot of time on it, but protect yourself. If you have any question before you send that money in, call somebody. If the deal sounds really good, legitimate, look what Bernie Madoff did. He got really sophisticated people involved in that. Do your due diligence and call us. The best way to find out if it's a good deal or not, call us, call the Better Business Bureau, call the FTC, call somebody and follow through. Kevin?
What I would say is I think the theme is prevention. I think we both strongly believe that we can aggressively investigate and arrest, but that doesn't stop the victims, and same with our employees. We really think prevention is the right thing to do.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you both. I want to thank our guests for being with us today and for helping us to better understand the work of the United States Postal Inspection Service. I thank you for watching, and I hope that you will continue to join us as we feature other federal agencies on your federal government.